This is going to be the tutorial for this all sewn up kit that's got these pockets and stuff for the inside, and it folds up into this. So I requested a kit. This isn't one that they sold. I just said I'd like a surprise kit, and this is one that they put together for me. So anyway, it's got my fabric, in which what you'll need, you only need 3 fat quarters, some batting, vinyl, which I got in my kit, Soft and Stable, which I keep on hand, fusible fleece, I keep that on hand, and I also keep fusible interfacing on hand. I did get the zipper in my kit. I got the swivel and the D-ring, and I have thread, and I've got all of these other things, but that one's optional. So let's get started and see what this looks like. Alright, first step was to cut everything out. I cut my vinyl down to size, cut a piece of my Soft and Stable. Here's my binding strips all ready to go. My piece of batting. And then over here are my other pieces, and I have already fused my fusible interfacing to them, and this is a mid-weight medium one. So it gives it a little bit more structure. It's a little bit more stiff. And then for the exterior piece right here, this is going to be the outside piece. This is my fusible fleece. So the exterior piece got the fusible fleece, and then a bunch of pieces. Just look at your pattern. I already adhered the mid-weight interfacing to them, and then I've got my batting, Soft and Stable, binding strips, and vinyl cut out. So now I'm ready to start piecing everything together. Alright, so first things first, you're going to take your exterior accent strips, and there are 5 of them, and this is my last one. The others are in there, and I'm kind of doing what we call chain piecing here. So what I've done is I've taken each piece, folded right sides together, long ways, hot dog bun, and now I'm just sewing 1/4 of an inch all the way down, and for chain piecing, I just started with one, and when I got to this process right here, it's dangerous moving the needle. I had the needle down, and I just folded the next one and put it in and just kept sewing until all of them, see, they're all connected here, were sewn. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of them, and using my bodkin right here, and I'll show you how that works. I'm going to turn them all inside out, and then I'm going to press them a certain way. So onto that. So I've got all of them turned out except one. I thought I was going to use my bodkin, but honestly can't figure this out. It's great for elastic. I still have my bodkin, and if I think I did figure it out, then pushing it through it was a little bit of a tight fit. So I gave up on the idea of using my bodkin to turn these inside out, and I just went with the old method of my safety pin here. So I just attach it there, and I didn't put my interfacing all the way up. This is just a little fabric, which I think helps get it through, and that was just by me not cutting it all the way. And I just kind of push it through, give it a little tuck, and then I just start pushing it through. Once I get it started, then it's really easy to start maneuvering. But anyway, just push it, and there it is. Once I have it through, I grab the end so I'm not pulling on the fabric anymore, and then just finish it. Take that out, and then you can clip off any flyaways that you have. Now, I hope you can see this pretty well. I have to stick my finger in there and just figure that out, or roll it around. But anyway, once you turn it inside out, you have that seam. That's where you sewed it. Now, usually a lot of people put it on the side, but since these are your accent fabrics, you don't want the seam to be seen anywhere, okay? So my guess is that these are going to go down on the top, and they're going to be sewn in place. So you want your seam in the middle of the back, whatever you choose the back to be. And so you just roll it until it's situated in the back of one side. So the other side, no seam on the sides. The seam is in the middle. And then you're going to go and give these all a really good press once the seam is aligned to the middle. and then move on to the next step. So next thing you're going to do is attach your zipper foot, because you're going to be working with your zipper. And these right here are the zipper accent strips, and you should have 2 of them. So my zipper is right side up, and just kind of find the center. The excess will be trimmed off later, but then if you find the center, you don't have to deal with that while you're sewing. So take one of them, and I don't know, I'll find my center, but anyway, I put right sides down, and then I'm going to put it into my sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch. I'm just going to stitch right down there using a 1/4 inch seam, and then I'll attach the other one to the other side. Alright, so that one is attached. It did look like this. Okay, so there's my seam all lined up. Now I'm going to flip it over, and this is the back, and I'm going to take my other one and put it right side down so the right sides of my fabric are facing each other. And I'm going to line it up, and you can sew from this side because you want to sew exactly on that same seam. I mean, you can sew from the other side. If you're sewing a 1/4 inch in, it should align, but I'm just going to line it up. You can clip it if you want to. You don't have to. You can pin it, whatever's floats your boat. And then going to stitch down a 1/4 inch so the seams are exactly sewn on top of each other. Okay, so now that I'm done, I'm just going to open it up, and I'm going to fold both of them back, okay? So I'm pressing both of them back so you can see the right side. They should line up all the edges, and then I'm going to give it a really good press there. Okay, so I think this is how it works. There they are, and my zipper's right side up. Here's my vinyl. Now I'm gonna align it on the top part here, and I am going to sew it all the way down, but I don't want to sew it to the back piece. So we're going to move that back piece away, and then I'm going to align my vinyl here, and then I'm going to stitch it a 1/4 inch all the way down. So to sew it, I got this Teflon foot from the Quilted Cow. It wasn't that expensive at all, but it really helps with vinyl. I have a low shank machine, and so this is my vinyl here, and I'm just stitching it on. So here it is sewn, and you should be able to pick it up now, and you do not want to iron vinyl. You will melt it, you will kill your iron, so it should just fold in like that, and that's a 1/4 inch. So on this side, I'm actually going to take this over to the ironing board and use my hot iron, which you can iron on the ruler itself. And I'm going to fold this in a 1/4 inch. It says finger press, but since my vinyl is not going to be touching it, I'm just going to go ahead and iron that a 1/4 inch over. Okay, so both, that's a 1/4 inch and that, and then they should match up because they're both folded under a 1/4 inch. All right, so here are both my pockets. I've got my large pocket and my smaller pocket, and it's the same process for both of them. You're going to take them and fold them in half, short side to short side, just like that, right sides together. You're going to stitch along there, and then once we do that, we'll turn them inside out, and then we're going to top stitch along the edge that does not have this seam, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so again, fold it in half, short edge to short edge, just like that, and sew down, and then turn them inside out and give them a good press with the seam running along the bottom edge. All right, so here they are inside out, and if I open it up right there, you'll see there's my seam. So my seam right there, I ironed it, and it's become the bottom edge of the pocket. There's my seam right there on the bottom. And so this is the top edge that does not have the seam, and so you're going to top stitch about whatever you want, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. It doesn't really say, so it's up to you. You can use a decorative stitch if you'd like, but top stitch all the way down. All right, so now you're gonna layer your pockets on top of each other. Behind was the large pocket, and you can see I did the decorative stitch there. And you're gonna make sure the right sides are aligned. So both my sides are aligned, and this is the bottom seam, and that's the bottom seam, okay? So decorative edges at the top. So what you're going to do is there's basically 2 measurements, okay? And this is step 4 in your pattern. So for the first measurement, you're going to measure from this side in, okay? So go ahead and go measure from here over, and I drew a line with my friction pen. And then I took the second measurement and I measured from here in, and I drew a line. And see, this hangs over. This is going to be a flat pocket, but this is going to kind of be a, I don't know, it's not quite a puckered pocket, but I don't know how else to describe it. So once this line is sewn and once this line is sewn down, you're going to take this excess and you're going to manipulate it and bring it over so it matches that side, okay? And then you will sew, it moves on me, I don't have everything in, but anyway, once you have it matched like that, you'll sew, can I do it, 1/8 of an inch there, okay? And I think you'll also, once you sew down, you'll sew over on this one as well, just to baste it in place, so on the side and down. You don't have to go all the way over, okay? All right, and that'll give you a little bit of extra room in this pocket if you want to stick something that's a little bit bulkier inside. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to sew this line, then I'm going to move this over to match that edge, then I'll baste this and this part down right here onto the back pocket. Alright, so this is what it looks like, and I'm going to take it over to the ironing board because once I apply heat, that pen mark with my friction pen, I've got a whole collection. Oh, you can't see them. They're coming up right there that I used. It will disappear. So I said to baste this down, and hopefully you read the comment when you're doing it. Don't baste that down. See, it pops up. See? So that's what it should look like. You've got that little bit of extra space. Alright. There's a pocket, and then there's a pocket too. On to the next step. Okay, I don't know why they made this into an extra step, but they did. They could have done this when I just folded it over. But anyway, now I'm going to just top stitch along here, making sure. See, there's my vinyl that was folded under, and this I already pressed, but now I'm just going to top stitch that all down so everything is connected. And I'm going to measure, put it in, measure from here out when I top stitch. Okay. Alright, so now you're going to take one of your exterior accent strips, which is the one we sewed, turned in half, and aligned the seam to the middle back. You're going to sew it down on both sides, and then you're going to cut it in half to make 2. Alright, so this is my interior lining piece. There it is. And what I've done is this is going to be the top, and I've measured down according to the pattern from the top, and I've taken my batting and aligned it and centered it, so I got it even on both sides. And I mean, I think you could probably use a piece of felt too if you didn't want to use batting, but since I don't have felt, I'm just going to use the batting, which are the directions called for. Now the directions do say to use a walking foot for accuracy because this can tend to shift, so a walking foot would be better for layers. You pin it, you can pin it really well because you want it to really stay in place, and then you're just going to sew all along close to the edge all the way around the perimeter to secure it down. Alright, so now you're going to take your 2 strips and you want to make sure the seam is going to be folded over. Okay, so you have your D-ring and your swivel, and you're just going to put, okay, we'll put the seam, this is seam side up, we're going to put it through so that way we can fold it over. Alright, we're going to meet the edges, and then we're just going to pin it. So I'm just going to take a pin and pin it so it doesn't, it's really hard to pin. You know what? I'm not going to pin it. I'm going to use my clips. Ta-da! So much easier. Okay, and then we'll do it with the D-ring as well. So there's my seam. I want to make sure it's folded so I don't see it on the outside. And I'm just going to clip in place like that. So that's step number 9, and then we're going to go on to step number 10. Alright, so this is my exterior piece, which the fusible fleece is already attached, and now we're going to attach the accent strips. So on step 10, they have a really nice diagram, and I measured from the top down for the first one, and then from that line I measured down to the second line, and I used my friction pen. This will all erase once it has heat. And then from the bottom I measured up according to the diagram, drew my line, and then I measured from this line up according to the diagram and drew my line. So I'm going to start up here at the top, and you should have 4 accent strips left over. Yeah. Okay. And so this is the seam that was in the middle, and that's going to go down because you don't want that shining up. So you're just going to align the top there. And for this one, this is where the swivel hook goes. So what I'm going to do is, it kind of tells me on the diagram how much you're supposed to leave. And so what you would do is, let's see here, I might have to measure it just to make sure, but I think just by looking at it that would be right. Alright, and then you're going to lay that over top. Now it does stick out, which is totally fine right now. Okay, once that's aligned and you have it all clipped and pinned into place, you're going to top stitch along the top here, closest to the swivel hook, all the way down. Okay, once that is top stitched on the top part here, that's going to secure that and that. And then you can take your scissors and trim off the excess. Okay, cut it a little bit shorter than here, so these ends are nice and tucked under here. And then you're going to go ahead and stitch that bottom part down. And then you're going to take your second one seam side down. This one you're not putting anything under, so once it's pinned in place, all the way down. And then for the bottom, you're doing something similar. So this one right here, this is just a nice easy one where you get to make sure seam side is down, top stitch in both, but this one here is where you're putting your D-ring. So it's going to be similar to the swivel. The diagram tells you about how much to leave from this line up for your D-ring, and then you make sure it's centered. And then you're going to take that and lay it over, making sure your seam side is down. And then you're going to top stitch the top part closest to the D-ring first. And then you're going to trim off that excess. You want to trim it a little bit shorter so you don't have these raw ends poking out anywhere. And so they'll be nice and tucked under that strip. And then you'll go ahead and sew the other side down. So I'm going to do that now. Alright, so this is what it looks like when you're all done. There's that, and there is that. Okay, on to step 11. Alright, so now we're going to attach this piece right here to our interior. So there is the batting up there. And according to the pattern in step 11, I measured from the bottom up and I drew my line, my alignment line. Put this on, clipped all those layers together there, I clipped it there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to sew 2 lines right here to attach this to my interior lining piece. Now this has excess fabric, so what I've done is kind of tried to find the middle as best as I could, and then I just folded, tucked that excess fabric under and folded it, I guess, to the left. Okay, and now I'm going to sew 2 lines, so maybe I'll do one maybe about a 1/4 of an inch, or maybe just a little more than a 1/4 of an inch, and then I'll do one in between there and the first line that I sewed right in the middle. All right, here we go. Okay, so I probably definitely sewed up farther than I should have, but I like it. I think maybe my first line should have been there, and then my second line could have been right underneath. But anyway, it's my bag. I get to sew it the way I want, right? Okay, so, but if you don't want to lose some of your pocket, then sew maybe like just a 1/4 of an inch, and then sew that second line right underneath. All right, so I probably lost just a little bit of my pocket, but I'm okay. All right, in step 12, there was another measurement from the bottom up, and so I measured that and I drew a line, because now I'm going to take my, vinyl pocket piece here, and this is the right side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over. So this is the back of my zipper, and there's the zipper tab over there, and I'm going to take the edge of my zipper here and I'm going to align it with that line that I drew. Okay, and I'll line it up when I click the video off. And I want to make sure that this, if I sewed it like that, that'd have been bad. I want to make sure because I have excess zipper on each side. All right, so I'm going to make sure my vinyl pocket is aligned where it should be, and then the edge of my zipper is aligned where it should be down here with my line, which it wasn't. And then I'm going to attach my zipper foot, which I already did, attach my zipper foot there. And then I'm gonna sew that zipper down on the back and attach it to that, and then this is gonna flip over. Okay. All right, so there it is sewn on. And now we're just gonna take this and flip it back just like that, and that's gonna meet. And you know, I'm gonna clip it, and then what you're gonna want to do is you want to move this zipper pull into the middle here. And then you're going to trim, very carefully, make sure everything is straight, okay? Trim the excess zipper off there and trim the excess zipper tape off on this side. Okay, so now it's time to start attaching everything. So this is the interior piece, this is the top, this is the bottom. I've got my zipper pull right there. I pulled it a little bit closer there. And then I have my outside piece there, and I made sure that the swivel hook is at the top. All right, and then this is at the bottom, my D-ring. And I clipped everything in place, made sure there was no puckers or anything on both sides. And in between is the layer of soft and stable. So there it is right there. So I have my interior, soft and stable, exterior. This is not basted together. Right now, all that's holding it together are these clips. Now the pattern doesn't say to baste. I'm deciding if I want to do like a base stitch all the way around just to hold everything together, because they're now suggesting make the binding and then attach the binding, and when you sew the binding on from interior, and then you're going to flip it around to the front, that will sew everything together. So I'm still in the process of, do I want to just base stitch everything together and remove all these, and then it's easier for me to sew my binding on, or if I want to just attach my binding and sew everything together all at once. I'll probably go with the base stitch, so I don't have to worry about things shifting as I put my binding on. So I'm going to do that, and then I will prepare the binding and start doing the binding. But for binding, you've got a couple options. You can sew it first to the interior and then flip it over. The pattern says to hand sew it, it'll look nicer. Or you can sew it on the front first so it looks nicer, and then flip it over to the interior, and you can hand sew it, or you just machine stitch it down once you flip it over. So it's up to you. I will machine stitch. I'm not going to hand stitch. Hand binding is not my favorite, and I'll do it for quilts. Pretty much quilts only. So, all right, let's get to this. All right, so I pretty much basted it. I just folded it right now so I could see how it clipped together, and it looks pretty good. So now I'm going to work on my binding strips. So if you've never connected binding strips, or if maybe you do it well, so this is one binding strip. This is my other. They're right sides together, 90 degrees. Lining up my raw edges to raw edges. And then what I do, you can put your ruler there and mark this diagonal, which will be your sew line. I just take that and I fold it back so it makes like a little triangle. Then I give it a good finger press. I clip or pin, and then I sew on that diagonal line. And then from that, I trim 1/4 of an inch away from the sew line. And then this slips back, and then you have 3 pieces. There's my third one, and then I'll connect it onto the end of this one after I connect these two with using the same process. All right. So there's my sew line, and I already trimmed it, and then it just opens up, and then you have a nice continuous binding, and then this one goes up like that. I did not cut mine on the bias because I have straight edges, but some people like to always cut their binding on the bias so it gives it a little stretch. I especially do it when I have any curved edges, but usually for straight I don't cut on the binding. Everyone has their own preference. All right, so I right sides together, perpendicular. Gonna fold this down and then give it a finger press, sew and trim, and then I'll be ready to iron it in half, wrong sides together, all the way down, so I can attach it to that. All right, so I have decided to sew my binding on, and here's I just ironed it in half, and this is the folded, this is the raw edge, and I matched up raw edge to raw edge, and I'm gonna sew it on all the way around. And if you don't like binding, I have this perfect binding miter, and I got it in a quilt store years ago, and this is what helps me do my binding on the corners. I'll show you how it works. All right, so this is how it works. So I sew a little bit on, and then I stop, and I have my needle down, and I did put this up in case I need more room, but I want the 1/4 inch because I'm doing sewing a 1/4 inch seam. So I just I slide that under. Ooh, and I might need to go back a little bit. But anyway, I slide it under and say, I need to go back a little bit. I went a little too close. But anyway, this should align with this side, okay? And align with that side and that side. And then you're going to take your friction pen and you're going to mark that diagonal onto your binding strip, okay? And then you're going to put your presser foot down and you're going to sew until you get to that mark. And then you're going to keep your needle down, and then you're going to turn it and pivot and then sew on that diagonal line. And then you'll pick everything up, cut it, turn your project, fold this back on that line, sew it, and maybe I'll have to show you later. Okay, I'll do that. Hold on. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but I've already marked my 1/4 inch, because I do in 1/4 inch, so I'm using the 1/4 inch, and I've already marked that. So now I'm gonna sew down to that line, and I'm gonna stop right when I get above it. There it is. Needle down, oops, needle down. Then I'm gonna pivot, and then I'm gonna sew off on that line. And you don't have to back tack, that's just my preferred method. All right, so now I'm gonna trim it. And now I'm gonna turn it. All right, so there it is, and I don't know if you can see it. There's my line right there. And so now I just bring my binding up on that line, and I pull it back so it makes that nice angle there. And then I fold it over here, and then I put it back in and line it up on my 1/4 inch seam, and then I just keep on sewing. Make sure that swivel hook is out of the way. Everything is aligned when you're going. And I'm going to stop here, pick that up. Hopefully I didn't go too far. Gonna lay that in, and I did. I'm trying to go back a few. There we go. I don't know. I'm usually pretty good at it, but maybe there it is. Okay, so it's aligned corner, corner. I just stick that in and mark, and then I just keep going. That down. And again, once I get to that mark, I can see it. There it is, needle down. Come on. Pivot. Not pivot that much. And then sew off on it. Okay, my project was naughty on me and it just shifted, but anyway, I'll get it. Trim, and then just keep repeating the process till I get all the way around. Alright, so I have my binding and I connected it. Now I flipped it over, and what I'm doing is, if I had Elmer's glue, I would use that, but I unfortunately don't. I forgot to buy a bottle from my house, but I do have this glue stick that I got. It's the Quilter's Select that the Quilted Cow sent me. I think it's by June Taylor. And anyway, I'm just going along applying glue, folding that over, holding it, and then clipping it. And that's going to hold my binding in place. Elmer's glue, you can get that and put it in like a glue bottle that has a really fine tip. And what you can do is you can put Elmer's glue right here, or even use a glue stick. And then you just need a little bit, and then you take it over to the iron and you press it, and then the heat dries and bonds it. And it doesn't mess up your sewing machine at all, and it holds your binding in place beautifully. And that way you don't have to use any pins or anything, and then you can just stitch around it. You can do a top stitching, you can do stitch in the ditch. I haven't decided whether I'm going to do like a decorative stitch or if I'm going to try just like a straight stitch or flip it over here and do stitching in the ditch there. We'll see what I come up with. But anyway, I'm going to go around and do that to the whole thing. Alright, so I am done with mine, and I decided after I glued it to just turn it around and then stitch in the ditch from here. I'll show you what it looks like. You know, binding is a hit or miss for me when it looks good, but it looks great from this side. But there's the top part. I'm assuming this is where you can put like needles and pins, and that can hold in there. That's why you could do felt as well. I've done felt on a different project. Here's a pocket there. I've actually got this quilted cow ruler, and it would actually fit here. It would actually fit here. I mean, look at what they put in there. Okay, so there's that. You've got your pocket here. You've got that pocket. You've got this pocket right here. You come down here, and there's your vinyl pouch with your zipper that you can put stuff in. And then there's what it looks like from the front. There's my stitching in the ditch. It's not the most beautiful, but it's not the worst either. You know, I take my binding when I can get it. So this part folds up like that, and this part folds down. This part folds under, and then this D-ring. It's really hard to do this one-handed, but anyway, it'll clip. Did I do it? I did it. Okay. It clips into there, and there you have it. And there's the back of it. Alright, so this is my first one of this. Didn't go too badly. And this is the all sewn up sewing kit. So get yourself one. Pattern and kit came from the Quilted Cow.